Could it be? We're on time? Again? Jesus Christ. And now we blow out your speakers.
I could tell you one time, don't want it with us. I could tell you one time, that we'll fuck you up. I could tell you one time, go grab your guns. I'll tell you one time, this day belongs to us. Why?
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the War Room. I am your host, Sean Pwnery. I know I've never said that before. This is day 261. Can you believe it? 3/4 of a year gone. And for what? War. Why? I maintain that the war in Ukraine is nothing more than the wet dream of a Cold War relic who apparently is dying of cancer, supposedly, allegedly. But either way, he's going to ruin as many lives and as many geopolitical alliances or whatever as possible in the process. This sawed-off, bald-headed runt is going scorched earth. He has laid waste to tens of thousands of hectares of territory. He has wasted tens of thousands of lives, thousands of tanks, hundreds of aircraft, over a dozen ships. The scroller is up to date, right there for you to see. It's a mess, a debacle. It's whatever you want to call it. But today, what it is it's about gear. It's about the winter. It's about infrastructure. It's about heat. It's about food. It's about power, electricity power. It's about drawing giant cocks in the air over the skies of Syria. Yeah, you heard me right. Today's episode is a little different because I have set the tone for, let me just read you the theme. Winter is coming, and so is the gear. Both sides are gearing up with new arms, donations, and deals. The Air Force, our Air Force, the United States Air Force, the most powerful country, militarily, geopolitically, maybe even economically, in the world, is having a bit of fun over the skies of Syria. Russia, on the other hand, pulls a Fast and Furious. Not, it's about family. No, not that part. No. No, far from it. No, no. We're talking about Fast and Furious 1. We're going to steal shit and sell it to our enemies. They're stealing supplies, military hardware, money, whatever, crating it up and sending it to Iran. Because, you know, you got to pay for them drones somehow, right? Cash, ass, or grass. Or in this case, military hardware from the United States and the British and the EU. Yeah. And you remember that phrase, here, oh, here's some helmets. Not this time. Nope. Nope. It's more like, have an Oscar award. Yeah. What a fucked up war this is. Anyway, before I get into a long ass tirade, I only have 13 stories today. My goal is to get you in and out of here in 90 minutes. I already know it's not going to happen, but that's my goal. I have 2 other hosts. I'm going to bring them in right now. This is Mikhail Nightstrikesky, who is probably in the middle of a conversation with Scott P79. So, good evening to the both of you. I bet you thought I was going to go on for another 25 minutes.
Actually, we are. We are going
You
to.
mean like last Friday?
Yeah, we were talking about some deals, and I want to mention this. I can't give you any links, but just look up the company Global Ordnance. They've got 30 round steel AR-15 mags, $4.99.
Fuck. I don't know how I'm going to recover from this financially. Thank you, though.
And they've got Glock 9mm magazines, 33 rounds, $7.99.
The KCI ones or genuine Glock ones?
No, same company that makes the steel mags,
Who makes
SHK, South Korean.
Jesus
So like
Christ.
another, I guess it's another branch of KCI.
I don't know how I'm going to financially recover from this.
I mean, I got
Start
I
pouring
got this
yourself
email
out.
just like 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to order like 4 mags of each. You know?
I'm going to share something on air, and it's not something I'm proud of, and it's not something I want to do. But I might have to sell my car. No, I'm not kidding. I'm dead serious. My dog she's got issues, and it's going to cost me a lot. And the quickest way for me to get her taken care of is I'm probably going to have to sell my car. I don't want to do it. I said I wasn't going to do it, but I might have to do it. So if any of you out there are in the market for something retro and modern, I have a Thunderbird for sale, possibly. PM me or email me after the show or whatever, because I might have to, because my dog's life is more important than a stupid car. I'm not happy to do it, but I might have to. Anyway, she's laying comfortably right now on my bed, fresh and clean as a daisy. You brush her teeth. She got a bath. I just fed her. But she still has issues, and it's gonna be expensive. Like, I can't avoid it. I might have to sell it. I could sell a rifle or 2, I guess. But I'd rather just sell my car because it's worth a lot of money. And I don't really need that now that I've got the truck. So, we'll see.
I mean, you feel like cutting me a deal for that 1903. You know, I've got some money that's setting aside.
I thought I made you a deal on my 1903.
Yeah, you make me a better deal.
We'll talk after the show, but I'm pretty sure I made you a good deal.
No, it's Sporterites. You're not gonna make me a good deal on that.
Make you a fair deal on it. Plus, I'll give you the ammo or the reloading shit and the ammo for it. We can do that.
I've got 30 odds.
Right, but you don't have the press or the die set or the brass that I've already got sitting around accumulated for it.
Nah, that's true.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm not attached to it, so yeah, it's yours if you want it.
That's on the table. Okay.
That's on the table. So do you guys have anything like personal you want to share this week that you went through aside from Rona, or getting over Rona?
Nope.
Anything good? Okay.
That
Well, let's
was
just get into the show then. I promised the viewers that I would get them out of here in 90 minutes or less, unless you guys
Don't
have
lie
a
to don't
ton
lie to
more.
them. It's probably gonna be another 3 hours. Just
Well,
be honest.
we'll try not to do it this time. I got the whole intro done in exactly 10 minutes and 3 seconds as of this second, so
Yeah, sure you did.
Hello to Hawaii Volcano Squad, and Bjorn, and Terry, and John Z, and PNW Woods. All of you. Good evening.
HBS, what's up, dude?
Good evening to
How
all
you
of you.
doing?
Oh, he may be a co-host next week.
Really?
Just so you know. Yeah.
Well,
Because he was
apparently Woods is still alive.
well, he was
It'd be
asking me. He goes, "How come I never get a link to the show?" And I'm like, "There's a
because you're not on
link."
Discord.
Yeah, I was like, "There's a link to the server in every video description. You're welcome to join." He's like, "That's not an invite to the show." And I'm like, "I literally drag people from the green room into the show." He-
Listen, if you got an iPhone or you got an Android phone, there's Discord for both iPhone and Android.
Oh, he's got
You can use
everything.
that. I mean, if you got a Mac or a PC, you can use it on your Mac and PC too.
Yeah.
It's like
He's
it's
got all
free
that
to download.
stuff.
You don't have to pay for it. It's free to download.
Yeah, that almost sounds like a pitch to a retarded turtle.
I know, right?
Yeah. Who's not
Which-
in the
which-
chat right now.
Which he asked for a link. We were doing hit or miss the other day.
I know.
I gave him a link and then I gave him the Discord link.
I know. Retarded turtle. Oh, let me rewind for a second and let me start over.
All right.
Happy Veterans Day to all of you who served our country or any country that you may have been born or lived into,
Yes, happy
obviously.
Veterans Day.
And if you're on the road to the Wanamaker Gun Show in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is tomorrow, which I really wanted to be a part of on a November show, safe travels. And I hope you brought Kevlar or a bulletproof vest, because there's something this year that has me very concerned and very worried for your safety. But I won't get into the details. Call me! Call me! Sorry.
I got a couple things to say before we start. Okay.
Go on.
The second most iconic Batman passed away today.
Yes, the guy who did the voice for it. Correct.
Kevin Conroy did the Batman animated voice, and he did many video games, video
Yes.
game animated voice.
Yeah, he did like the Arkham Asylum and all of those voiceovers too,
yes.
right?
Yes, he did those. Yes.
Gallagher also died today. Comedian.
That-
Gallagher.
That's no loss. That's no loss. He wasn't.
No, it
funny.
is a loss, dude. That guy looked like. Once upon a time, you could put Gallagher and Paul Simon side by side. You couldn't tell the difference between the two. That was an icon.
Yeah, that was in the 70s.
Yeah, that was an icon. A bit of my childhood and Scott's childhood has died. But on the flip side, every watermelon in the world has breathed a sigh of relief.
Yes. I
So there is
also
that.
want to mention. So we got some Russian news. Okay, before
Go
as
on.
we start off. Okay, yesterday marked. I don't know how many years, but yesterday marked the birthday of Kalashnikov himself.
November 10th.
November 10th was his birthday. I don't know how many years old he
Mikhail.
would have been.
Kalashnikov.
Mikhail Kalashnikov, basically Mike, more or less, or Michael.
Mikey Kalashnikov.
Yes,
Let's see. He would be 103
1919
years old today.
yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Dang.
But I wanted to mention that
Oh.
because we're going to talk about how bad Russia was and whatnot, and he didn't mind if the AKs were being made over here in the United States or being sent here in the United States and sold.
Yes.
He just wanted people to use his rifle. That's all he ever wanted.
Well, he was a patriot for his own country,
Right.
because he was facing a war that Germany so they mechanized the First World War, mechanized the battlefield, but then the Germans made it full auto, basically, right? And
Right.
he needed something in kind as a response, because at the time they had the DP-27, the Degtryov. They had the PPSH, which is known as the burp gun for most of us. But he
And
needed
the automat too.
he needed the Kalashnikov automatic rifle for something to give to the common soldier that wasn't a pistol caliber that could match Germany's intermediate cartridge as seen in the Sturmgewehr 44 and 43,
Right.
because the battlefield doctrine had changed. In World War One, the ranges of battle were lengthened and then shortened. First, they were lengthened because everyone was using long rifles, but then they were shortened because they tricked people with long rifles to get in close and then mowed them down with machine guns. And then the British had to respond in kind by saying, look, we got to get back in there. And the only way they could do that was the tank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then the Second World War rolls around, and it's like, okay, we still have these bolt action rifles at distance. However, we're fighting street to street, house to house, building to building in Germany, Poland, France, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, you name it, right? Where the front, the distances to the front were blocks, not hundreds of yards. So Germany invented stormtroops again, and they were like, oh, we'll rush in fast and hard, we'll lob grenades, and we'll fire a cartridge that's more powerful than a pistol cartridge, but can go across 2 or 3 blocks and lay down suppressive fire and lay a hurting on people, and we can still clear a building. And then, what did Russia have?
Mhm.
The Mosin Nagant. They
No,
had
the moist nugget.
the Moist Nugget. They had the Nagant revolver, which I own. They had the... What else did they have?
Much later, they had
Realistically.
the M44.
Right, that was just a carbine version of the Moist Nugget.
Yeah.
But they had bolt action rifles. I mean, they were rushing to catch up
Which,
because
by the way, I really like my Type 53.
I really like my Type 44, my M44 with flip out bayonet.
Well, a Type 53 is the same thing. It's an M44. It's just the Chinese version.
Imitation is the finest form of flattery. Yes.
But
Anyway.
that Russian stock I got for it fits it perfect.
Anyway, posthumously from the grave, happy birthday, Mikhail Kalashnikov. Sorry we missed your day yesterday, but we weren't broadcasting yesterday.
No, we weren't.
You have stretched the introduction to 17 minutes.
All right. Now we can proceed now.
We can proceed now. We may go now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
No, it's
because
fine. I think that was a good piece of news. Okay, so we're going to start with day 254, which I believe last week I didn't have stories for Friday last week. So we're going to start with Friday of last week, if you don't mind. And I have this photo here. And it's a short story, so we're going to get through these quick. I promise you. It's 13 stories, and mine are all short. 1 or 2 are long, but we'll get there when we get there. We'll burn that bridge after we cross it. Anyway, the Biden administration will send Ukraine $400 million in new military aid that will include drones, tanks, and other weapon systems, the Pentagon announced, well, now last Friday. The aid also includes the establishment of a security assistance headquarters in Germany that will oversee all weapons transfers and military training as Ukrainian forces continue to fight an embattled Russian military. It will be led by a 3-star level senior officer and have about 300 personnel who will monitor the weapons assistance and training programs. U.S. Army Europe spokesman Colonel Martin O'Donnell is quoted as saying, Ukraine aid in government funding bill brings the total U.S. aid to the nation to $65 billion. Now, I wrote this as a side note because I want you not to think of this as just military aid. The entirety of aid to the Ukraine, medical, tactical, communications, whatever, close to $65 billion. But this number is about to drop dramatically. Every figure I give you after this is going to be military hardware only. So just 2 separate numbers, okay? 65 billion is the total, and then the next totals I tell you will be military aid. Just so you know. The 400 million includes contracts for 1,100 Phoenix Ghost drones, funding to refurbish 45 tanks, and an additional 40 river boats, among other systems. The Phoenix Ghost drone is an armed kamikaze drone. that explodes on contact with its target, sort of like the ones that the Russians are buying from the Iranians. Only difference is ours works, and it's a lot smaller, and it packs a bigger punch. So, ha! The tanks included in the package are being pulled from the inventory in the Czech Republic and will be paid for by the Netherlands. Yay, Dutchies! Also included are funds to refurbish Hawk surface-to-air anti-aircraft missiles. In total, the U.S. has committed more than $18.9 billion in security assistance since the war began in February. So the number you're going to hear me say the rest of the night is 19 billion, because that's military hardware assistance. Just so you know. Moving right along. I have no stories for Saturday or Sunday of last week. I skipped right over them. It was all human interest garbage. Just so you know. In the name of expediency, that is. Next story. And I'm going to separate when I get to the gear, okay? Because the theme tonight is winter and gear, just so you know. This is not a gear story. Oh, I should have made that a little bit bigger. Sorry about the cutoff at the top. Anyway, Monday, November 7th, day 257. A new kind of Cold War is building here in the Ukraine at the hands of Vladimir Putin. As their progress slows on the battlefront, Russian forces have been targeting civilian infrastructure. With winter closing in, and power, and heat, and water going, it could be Moscow's most dangerous tactic to date. Militarily, it's absolutely nothing, says Ukrainian Member of Parliament Alexei Goncharenko. But yes, it can cause a lot of suffering for the civilian population. The numbers tell the tale. Some 450,000 people were without power in the capital city of Kyiv in the past week, and nearly 5 million people nationwide. Some 40% of the electrical grid has been damaged, as well as 80% of all the power plants in the country. The word is that energy managers from the days when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union still have all the maps of the power grid, and they are feeding that information to the military. One Kyiv official branded these Russian electrical engineers as war criminals. The CEO of the biggest private utility company in Ukraine, DTEK, Maxim Timchenko, said that the country faces the possibility of a humanitarian catastrophe. As we were reminded, everything these days is interconnected. So, if you knock out power, you also cut cell phone service, shut down gas stations, turn off refrigerators that cool your food, close pumps for the water stations, etc. No wonder there was a recent report Kyiv was readying plans to evacuate the entire city of 3 million people if things get worse. Officials told us the story was premature, but they're already beginning to take measures. Officials just announced an increase of emergency, hourly blackouts to save power. Sound like California? Some 1,000 energy hubs across the city have opened up for people to use. Security at these sites is more on guard with repair teams working on the clock, around the clock, rather. Ukraine has been pretty good at knocking down Russian missiles and drones, but some strikes are still getting through. The U.S. and allies have announced that they are dispatching more air defense systems and munitions. The hotel we work out of here in Kyiv has a big backup generator. This is a story written by a guy on the ground, by the way. So aside from some flickering lights from time to time, we have been spared the brunt of blackouts so far. However, all it takes is a look on the once bright and now dark, like the picture there, city, or walk the dusky and tricky streets, or hear stories from local staffers about how their home fronts are badly affected, and you are reminded of the impact of these Russian moves that they're having here. Additionally, no place is really safe. We went to the headquarters of DTEK CEO Timchenko to conduct our interview, An air raid alert forced us to do it in the firm's parking garage, now turned into a bomb shelter. Timchenko's message, however, was not muted. We have no choice but to defend our country and to find a solution, he told us. To keep the lighting on, to keep this country heated, and to keep our people in the fight. As the temperatures here start dropping below freezing at night, their actions could not happen any sooner. So, you heard me bang on about this for weeks, maybe months. Russians do what Russians do. They fight very one-dimensionally. When they see a problem, they throw as many bodies as necessary at the problem until the problem is crushed from the sheer weight of the bodies, or the rubble, or the Katyusha, which Russia still uses to this day. Let's not kid ourselves. They have Grom missile launchers or whatever, but if you look at the fucking thing, it's not really that much different than the Katyusha that it came from, that it derived from. That's how Russians fight. And what they're doing now is making the entire nation suffer. This isn't a military versus a military. This is a military versus a nation. This is what they do. That's why winter is coming. This is why we talk about the blackouts and everything. Well, we'll get into that later. I mean, I'm leading into a story based off of this because I have a second picture of the lights out. But before we get to that, a word from our No commercials. Fuck that.
No, please, just one.
Listen, that one that Jimmy does, that Planned Parenthood thing, I wish I could do that. That's fucking hilarious. Anyway.
Or we could do the one that the Armed Scholar always does at the beginning of his videos.
No, I'll do you a better one than that. Because I do have a story that's got comedic value. And I call it Cox over Syria. You heard me right. So here's a photo. Which shows said cock over Syria. The U.S. Air Force is denying that pilots of a KC-135 Stratotanker. Now, sidebar here. Years ago, an F-35 pilot in the Navy, I think it was the Navy, was reprimanded for flying a flight path and contrailing a giant cock in the skies, right? The Air Force was like, we want in on that action. And they didn't use a tiny little fighter jet. No, sir. No. They used a flying gas tank. They used one of the biggest aircraft in their fucking inventory. I applaud you. Bravo. So let me start over. The U.S. Air Force is denying that pilots of a KC-135 Stratotanker, a flying gas station, intentionally flew a flight path that observers online noticed resembled the shape of a penis. That was pointed at a Russian naval base in Syria. We're aware of the incident, and we are talking with the KC-135 crew to determine the details, an Air Force spokesperson told military.com last week. At this time, we do not believe the crew acted inappropriately, flying a refueling orbit consistent with requirements that met the needs of receiver aircraft. We flew a giant cock because we had people who needed to receive it. That's what they're saying. The statement comes after social media users who follow flight paths on Flight Radar 24, a website dedicated to tracking planes around the world, noticed the flight path of the Air Force plane last week drew a long oval and two circles that resembled a penis pointed directly at Russian forces in Syria. However, the Air Force says that the pilots, who were flying a refueling flight between Cyprus and the Syrian city of Tartus, acted appropriately during their flight, arguing that the path was consistent with the path the giant tanker would take during refueling operations. The apparently coincidental patterned flight path comes at a time of increased tensions between the U.S. and Russia, who has been largely cut off from much of the international community amid their ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The incident is not the first time Air Force pilots have been accused of intentionally drawing cocks and balls in the sky. Coming 3 years after F-35 Joint Strike Fighters engaged in a dogfight training accidentally created a similar shaped image in the skies above Arizona. In 2017, Navy pilots intentionally flew an EA-18G Growler to draw cock and balls out of the skies of Washington. The pilots in that case were punished by the Navy, but did not lose their job as pilots. No, they didn't. They lost their job as, what do they call them? Skywriters?
Yes.
Listen, war is serious business. Tensions are high everywhere. Even if you are a Russian Navyman at this base, if there were contrails and you saw giant cock and balls in the air, I'm sorry, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh.
If you're a man.
If you're human, there's certain things that are timeless in comedy, right? Like a wet fart to break the tension in a serious situation. Fat Bastard in the Austin Powers series, right?
Yeah.
And he just goes, sorry, I farted. He was like, what the fuck? There are certain things that people do to break the tension. Drawing a giant cock over a battlefield, everyone's going to laugh at that. I'm sorry. It's just, it is what it is. Anyway. I just wanted to break the tension of war because apparently the Air Force has a sense of humor. So, good on you. Like, what are they going to do to the pilot of that KC-135? I mean, I already know. The punishment is going to be what my friend did for the Air Force. They're going to take the pilot and they're going to be like, next flight, you get to clean the bathroom bladders in the airframe. That leak. You're going to be the guy who reminds me to always wash your hands before eating chicken nuggets.
Nah, he's an officer. He'll just order someone else to do it.
My friend who
Ooh.
serviced the aircraft bladders on a KC-135 is an officer.
Sucks to be him.
Just so you
He
know.
must be low ranking.
I
Ooh.
think he's a major. It was a punishment, though. To be fair, it was a punishment. Anyway, moving on. It was a punishment, but he still had a sense of humor about it. He was like, nope, that's on me. So, don't forget, always wash your hands before eating chicken nuggets. If you need the explanation of that story, look back a few episodes. I explained the whole thing in detail. It's a really good mantra to live by, actually, once you get the moral of the story for it. Let's move on. Wednesday. See how fast we're getting through this already? Only half an hour in, too.
Keep going.
Wednesday, November 8th, day 259. And I took the time to put this little picture together for you because I wanted to draw a comparison. This one. So the photo on the left is a German V2 Vengeance weapon flying bomb. It is literally the genesis of the American space program, if you really think about it. Sorry, I needed a drink. And on the right, and yes, Scott, that is gin tea. On the right is the Iranian Shaheed, or shithead. I like to call it the shithead drone. They're not that far different if you think about what happens at the end of their flights. Anyway, so the story. This is a gear story. And it says they are not the most dangerous thing Russia is using against Ukraine in this war, but they are arguably one of the scariest. These are the Iranian-made, Russian-launched drones. They are small, only about 9 by 9 feet. They are relatively slow. They only travel at about 100 miles an hour. And they make a lot of noise, much like a V2 rocket. But actually, these sound a lot more like a lawnmower or a moped. That's
Well,
not
I
an
think you're
insult.
getting it confused with the V1.
Oh, you're right. You're right. The V1s, the buzz bombs made the noise. You're right. Correct.
Yep.
My mistake. Um, These actually make a sound more like a lawnmower or a moped. So it makes me think that it's a two-cycle engine. You know, for
No,
the
it's a Rotax actually.
the Shahid.
They've captured, yeah, they've captured a couple and opened them up, and yeah, Rotax might have some explaining to do.
Oh yeah, right.
Ooh.
I remember you telling me about that before. Are they theirs or just really bad copies of theirs?
No, it legitimately says Rotax right on the engine in pictures.
They're not
Huh.
gonna
So
copy it down to that precise.
Yeah, they're not
Is what I'm
Russian.
no, they're not Russians.
They're not Russians. And even the Russians fuck it up because they convert it to metric. We're
No, I was
talking
gonna
about
say
the
they're not China.
Tu-4 bomber, by the way, if you don't know what we're on about.
China
Um,
copies everything down to even the label.
no, the Russians did too, including the camera that sat in the radio man's room in the B-29. Not even kidding. That's a true story.
I
But
know that's why
they
it's funny.
fucked up because everything had to be converted to metric.
Ooh,
So the Tu-4 bomber was actually slightly bigger and a whole lot heavier, which means it wasn't as fast.
Ouch.
Fun or true fact or true story about the
Hmm.
Tu-4 Tupolev bomber. Anyway, uh, however, they can be sent from 1,000 miles away or more. When they crash into something, the 100 pounds plus of explosives on board pack a punch. Hence their nickname, kamikaze drones, after the Japanese World War II suicide pilots. These drones are very dangerous for us. Ukrainian military intelligence officer Vasily, he's using a pen name here, told us.
Sealy.
Yeah, they cause a lot of damage. You're going to love this. Vasily, with a balaclava halfway up his face, his identity withheld for security reasons, showed us around a room of Iranian drones at a Ukrainian military complex in Kyiv. A bigger reconnaissance drone that also carries explosives, bombs, engines, guidance devices, etc. The small one is what we're focused on. The Iranian model name is Shahid 136, or as Pwnery likes to call it, the shithead. When you're close up to it, you can touch it and check it out. It seems pretty innocuous, made of cheap fiberglass and painted a dull gray. The sort of thing you would watch model airplane enthusiasts fly in a park on a Sunday afternoon. However, hundreds of them have rained down on Ukraine. Locals can see and hear them coming. They experience the destruction, including against the electrical grid here that has been blacking out so much of this country now. We can see that these drones are aiming for critical infrastructure targets, Vasily explains. The Ukrainians are getting pretty good at shooting them down with their air defense systems, even sometimes with just automatic rifles. Vasily showed me bits of drones that had been knocked out of the sky or had exploded on impact. Still, hundreds, if not thousands more of these relatively inexpensive drones are being sent by Iran to Russia. Lost my place. The fear is, as Ukrainian President Zelensky recently mentioned, is of mass attacks. That is, a dozen being aimed at a single target. Even if 11 are shot down, one can still wreck everything. And if you think about it, we did discuss this in previous stories. They've been shooting down cruise missiles at an incredible rate, but Russians doing Russian things, they send dozens, and only one has to get through. Last week alone, they fired something like 70 missiles towards Kyiv. They shot down like 65 of them. One missile got through and knocked out the water station, which took out water in 80% of the capital. One missile did it. One missile crippled all the water in the capital. One. So, yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Let's see. The air defense system sometimes will not be able to cope with this, he admits, as the fight on many fronts, in many threatening shapes and sizes, continues to go on. So, here's the deal. I think we talked about this a little bit last week. Zelensky has asked since day one, close the skies over my country, and my men can do the rest. What does that sound like to you? Give us the tools and we can finish the job. Winston Churchill, 1943? Right? Battle of Britain? Ish? Give us the tools and we'll finish the job. Zelensky, 2022, February. Close the skies over Ukraine. My men can finish the rest. Neither have happened. Then, all of a sudden last week, we confirmed that Bibi Netanyahu gets reelected. Bibi Netanyahu calls Poland, of all people, and says, I want to send you my F-15s and F-16s. Poland's like, go on. And in a moment of brilliance, a theory popped up. Israel supplies F-15s and F-16s to Poland. Poland can now give their MiG-29s to Ukraine. And the United States can sell F-16s export models to Israel, completely leaving us out of the conflict. Bibi Netanyahu walks away a genius. Pretty cool idea, right? While he has got his hands into the bowels of the Ukrainian conflict, he's probably working on a way to give them something like the Iron Dome, which would then make Bibi Netanyahu the savior of Ukraine by closing the skies over Ukraine.
If they win.
Welcome to Time Magazine's Man of the Year 2023.
And if they lose, he's the one responsible for it falling into Russian hands.
Maybe. See, that's why I think he's doing this in phases. If he gets Polish MiG-29s into Ukrainian hands, and those Polish MiG-29s can now use our HARM missile system, that gives them a pretty good advantage. Until they can install something like an Iron Dome, or at least a watered-down version of it. Whatever, as long as it works, right? Ukrainians don't give a shit what version it is, as long as these little shithead drones are shot out of the sky. So it's actually win-win-win, right? And Netanyahu looks like a hero. And, I mean, I don't want to give him credit, but if the Biden administration starts greenlighting sales of F-16 export models to Israel, then we could assume that this was all part of the plan. I don't think Biden alone came up with it, but him and Austin and Milley and who knows who else. They could be like, look, this is how we turn up smelling like roses if we let Israel be the proxy. It's a nice theory. Well, I guess we'll see how it plays out. Anyway, unless you got another idea. Any thoughts?
No. I think you got it right.
Okay. I mean, I'm just throwing a theory up in the air here. I mean, it all flows nicely. I'm not saying this is the gospel, but if it does sort of play out this way, just remember this episode and how far ahead of the curve I was. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, moving on. Another gear story. I think you're going to like this one too. Like, I loved it. When I read this, I'm like, yes. So here's a picture for you. That, my friends, is a gorgeous, captured, and repainted T-72 Russian main battle tank. And the reason I posted that picture is because of this story right here. The United States, the Netherlands, and the Czech Republic have partnered to send 90 refurbished T-72B main battle tanks to Ukraine as part of the Biden administration's latest $400 million weapons package. The tanks, which have advanced optics, communications, and upgraded armor packages, will further enhance Ukraine's proficient armored warfare capabilities, according to the Pentagon. So I suspect this was an announcement by the Admiral, John Kirby, retired. Ukraine has been asking for more tanks and other armored vehicles as the winter approaches. We're fighting the war out of our pickup trucks, a Ukrainian soldier told Radio Free Europe last month. This is really tough for us. Well, I don't know. See, how tough is it? Because Boko Haram has made an entire division of Toyota Hilux pickups with Dushkas and recoilless rifles, and they're pretty fucking effective.
And rocket launchers in the back of their truck.
That's what the recoilless rifle is. Charlie G's and whatnot.
I've also seen missile systems on the back of those Hiluxes too.
Yeah, like TOWs or AGM-30s, I think they're called. Yeah.
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 They're pretty damn
No, the U.S.
effective.
developed a specific, they call it a vampire system
Yeah.
that's meant to shoot down drones.
Mm.
That's mounted on the back of a pickup.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
See, the thing about the truck is it can relocate and get the hell out of Dodge a whole lot faster than a track vehicle.
Yep.
So I don't see that as a bad thing. I don't even see that as disadvantageous, especially if you can cover up the cargo in the back. A couple of troop bows and canvas or whatever, or make it look like, I don't know, a fiberglass camper shell with ball all gall on the back of it. Some of you will get that reference, Terminator 1.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
You are. Anyway, the Pentagon will pay for 45 of the refurbished T-72B tanks from the inventory of the Czech Defense Ministry. While the
Not Chuck,
Netherlands...
it's Czech.
Well, I was trying to say Dutch. I was like tripping over my tongue. While the Dutch, the Netherlands,
Yeah.
will provide funds for the other 45. So they split the bill. Dutch treat. The tanks will start arriving in Ukraine next month. The U.S. has so far declined to provide more modern tanks, such as the M1 Abrams main battle tanks. Senior U.S. defense official told reporters in September that the Pentagon recognizes in the long term Ukraine will need to transition to NATO-compatible models. You know what that means to me? Hey, Germany, send your Leopard 2s. It's a shorter trip. Tanks are absolutely on the table, along with other things in the inventory, the defense official said on September 19th. In terms of the immediate fight, the tanks that are available that could be provided very quickly with little to no training are Soviet-type tanks, but we're certainly open to other options provided that the training, maintenance, and sustainment can be taken care of. Sidebar. Last week, we told you that Bibi Netanyahu made an offer that he was willing to give 200 Markava 4 main battle tanks. That's his current main battle tank. As a deposit to the Ukrainian army, if they could secure one undamaged, captured T-14 Armada. I'm telling you, he is raising the stakes on hardware. Welcome to the new arms race. Just saying. Anyway. The latest $400 million weapons package also includes funding to refurbish Hawk air defense missiles, 1,100 Phoenix Ghost tactical unmanned aerial systems. Is that the thing you were talking about, Scott? No, that's you said Vampire. And 40 armored Riverine boats. Is that the things that have quad 50s on them? Because that'd be badass.
Usually.
It adds more than...
Or miniguns.
Ooh, quad miniguns. Damn. Actually, you wouldn't need 4 if you had a minigun, because you would still outburst the quad 50, wouldn't you? By a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a comforting thought. Could you imagine quad GAU 8s? Jesus Christ.
There was somebody at Big Sandy that had that.
Quad GAU 8s?
And the best part is, it was one of the little gimbal chairs that they used to have the quad 50s on that you sat in.
Wait, quad GAU 8s, quad 30 millimeter Vulcans.
Oh, no, not 30 millimeters. These
Okay.
were 5.56.
Oh, you're talking about quad Dylan arrows. Okay. Because, those GAUs are pretty big. They built a whole plane around one. Anyway. This adds to more than $18 billion in security assistance that the Biden administration has already transferred to Ukraine since Russia invaded in February. So yeah, a lot of T-72s are about to show up. I got to admit, I think that's a good-looking tank. I mean, it may not be the most advanced thing, but it's good-looking. But I don't know. I'm a vehicle-ophile, I guess. Moving on. Thursday. Look at that. We're already up to ooh, Thursday, November 9th. That's Wednesday, isn't it? Let me check. I gotta verify so I don't fake news you. Yeah, I got the days wrong. Wednesday, November 9th, I guess. Either that or maybe that is November 10th. It doesn't matter. It's kind of an insulting story. So, Mike, you know how I always was like, if I'm NATO or the UN, I'm like, oh, you guys
Mhm.
need help. Here's some. What did they give him?
Here's some helmets and some night
Right.
vision.
Yes. Here's some helmets, right? Well, if you're a civilian, if you're a director in film, if you're Sean Penn, you don't have helmets to offer, do you? No. What you do have to offer is Oscar awards? Yeah. Actor and director Sean Penn on Tuesday gifted Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky one of his Oscar awards as a symbol of strength and asked the leader to hold on to it until his country defeats Russia. Penn's visit to Ukraine on Tuesday was his third since the start of its war with Russia. It's just a symbolic, silly thing, but if I know this is here with you, then I'll feel better and stronger for the fight, Penn said in a video posted inside Zelensky's office. When you win, bring it back to Malibu. Zelensky initially declined the Academy Award, but eventually accepted the offer. We have to win, the president says. He later wrote in a post, Sean brought his Oscar statuette as a symbol of faith in the victory of our country. It will be in Ukraine until the end of the war. Penn has won 2 Oscars for Best Actor during his career. He received the first award in 2003 for his role in the film Mystic River, and the second in 2008 for Milk. Zelensky also presented Penn with an award during their meeting, giving the actor the Order of Merit of the Third Degree for his support of Ukraine. Penn's name will be added to the Walk of the Brave in Kyiv, which honors foreign leaders and representatives who have offered significant support for the country. Penn's last visit meeting with Zelensky was in June. The Hollywood director was also in Ukraine in February on the 24th, the day that Russia launched its invasion, as he was shooting footage for his documentary on the unfolding crisis that was already in the works. He was one of the thousands of people forced to flee on foot to Poland when Russian missiles began hitting the cities. The actor has hosted fundraisers through his core charity in support of Ukraine. In the spring, he even considered taking up arms to defend the war-torn country. In September, Moscow banned Sean Penn and fellow actor Ben Stiller, another vocal critic of the war, from entering Russia. So it's mostly symbolic. But the only reason that he got involved in the first place was because he paid attention. He saw the writing on the wall. He saw the Russian buildup in Belarus and surrounding the country. He heard the rumblings in Crimea, and he decided this needs to be documented because world media is not giving it the attention it deserves. So he did. He didn't win an Academy Award for it, but as a symbolic gesture, because of how important, I guess, this was to him, he gave one of 2 of his Academy Awards, which were milestones in his success, to the president of Ukraine. It doesn't help Ukraine win. It's just a symbolic gesture. It's a morale booster. It's a look, I'm here, I saw this, and this is as important to me as you winning. I want you to have this as just a talisman of confidence or whatever, right? There's nothing wrong with that. As a PR stunt, he's not making a dime off of this. So I'm thinking, okay, whatever. Anyway, on a side note, that motherfucker is ripped. You see this picture of this? I can't do that. I got a torn pectoral too, so whatever. Anyway, moving on. Dude's ripped. That's all I'm saying. I gotta lift more, I guess.
You do.
Man, I can't keep lifting though. Anyway,
I believe the proper response is, "Do you even lift, bro?"
a lot. A lot. I mean, I've only gained like 75 pounds of mass in like the last 6 or 7 years. Yeah, I lift a lot. Anyway, moving on. We are into Thursday, day 9, day 260. So just to give you an idea of how far along we are already,
We're
which is
almost
great,
done. We can finish early tonight.
ain't it? Well, unless you got other stuff.
I got other stuff.
Okay.
But,
Well,
if
let me
you
get through
don't,
mine quickly, and then the floor is yours.
don't go over all of it.
All right. So moving on to, let's see, how many stories do I have left? 1, 2, 3. Not many. Not many. Okay. Here. The generators are not really what I'm trying to get you to pay attention to. It's what's at the bottom right corner. Those. What are those? You might be asking. What the fuck are those things? And who provided them?
We still see the plane.
No, it's coming. It's coming. There's a delay. You know how it works. Anyway,
Yeah,
once
your-
you see
your
those,
flow, we get it.
you'll see. You're like, what the hell are those? Uh, this is
Hyundai.
another.
All right.
This is another
Hyundai.
gear story. Much is said about the high-tech World War III style weaponry being employed by Ukrainian forces in their war with Russia. Still, so much of this fight looks more like World War I style trench warfare along the dug-in Eastern Front in Kyiv's war with Russia-backed separatists. And now in defensive fallback positions in the south, around the Russian-held city of Kherson, where a big battle is brewing. Complete with all the basic needs the troops have in these kinds of conditions, like staying warm and dry and provided with power, while jousting with the enemy. Winter is already here. Former Ukrainian president and businessman Petro Poroshenko told us. It's easy for you to imagine how it must be here. Poroshenko's companies and charities have contributed much to the troops. On one cool night in Kiev, we watched as equipment was loaded onto trucks to be taken to the front line near Kherson. Portable metal wood burning stoves for soldiers to huddle around. That's what those things are at the bottom right corner.
That is World War I-esque.
Yeah. Which retain the heat of burning logs for hours at a time. Now, I know you can't really see it too well. The cylinder in the middle one of those three, that's where the log goes in. Everything around that, like if you look down the sides, they're fins. There's plates that are welded around that thing.
Those look like, modified rocket stoves.
A bit. It's a giant heat sink looking type thing, though. Those fins stick out, and they
Well, yeah,
they
because-
radiate the heat from the tube in the middle.
Mhm.
That's the big thing that I wanted to point out of technology from yesteryear, because Poroshenko's company makes those and donates them. Compact gas and diesel powered generators. That's the things on the left, obviously. The source of critical electricity for the dugouts in the middle of nowhere. So like field radios, GPS units, combat computers, tough books, etc. Right? Need power. And the cargo trucks themselves, armored up to fend off military and artillery blasts that would not have seemed out of place on battlefields in France over 100 years ago. They're like just welded up plates on trucks and shit. Poroshenko does acknowledge that all of the state-of-the-art stuff Ukraine is getting from the U.S. and the West, long-range guided missiles, drones, jets, modern tanks, satellite surveillance systems, it is key to tangling with Russia. But he's also firm about the basics. Strong support for the man on the ground, the ones he calls brave warriors. We have one of the best armed forces in the world, he says. But having you stand shoulder to shoulder with us, this is the future of the world. This is the future of the war that we're facing. A future using techniques from the past and the present, which hangs in the balance of the defense of one country. I mean, like, whoever actually wrote that story, they sort of romanticized it a little bit. Not badly, though. I think it's pretty good. And I think it was just to show you that what is old is new again. Because if you're that guy on the ground in a hole that, if just the right artillery shell lands next to it, becomes your grave, you need the basics. Beans, bullets, antibiotics, heaters, jackets, generators. That's the stuff that you don't really hear much about, right? All we hear usually about is drones, javelins, uh, Panzerfausts, anti-aircraft missiles, shit like that, right? But that's for like specialist units. What about that guy who's knee deep in cold, frozen, rainy, muddy shit who just wants to keep his hands from shaking? That's what this guy is. That's what that stuff is. That's for him. Also, think of the morale boost. You know, you're sitting in a trench and it's 5 degrees outside, and you don't know if what Slav bastard on the other side is pointing a gun at you, and you can't stop shaking, and all of a sudden somebody brings you one of these little things next to you, throws a log in it, and all of a sudden it's 70 degrees in your trench on a 5-degree night. That's big in terms of morale. Makes you fight harder. Anyway, moving on. Super appropriate, actually, because today's Veterans Day. Holiday created after what? The Great War. What else got released recently? The German equivalent of All Quiet on the Western Front. I recommend you watch it. It's quite amazing. Moving on. And some of you might recognize these two women. Maybe.
It's
coming.
the aircraft again.
No, it's coming. It's coming. Remember, you got a delay.
You gotta fix this.
Mm-mm.
Don't
You
say
have a
no
delay.
yet.
You have a delay. The viewer doesn't. The viewer sees it instantly.
I'm watching it right now.
Fine. Whatever. They will see it. As you will. European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen paid an official visit to Moldova Thursday, where she announced a $250 million support package to help the small nation overcome an acute winter energy crisis amid Russia's war in Ukraine. Do you guys remember Moldova? It was that tiny little country to the southwest of Ukraine.
It used
The
to be
country
part
that
of
was too...
Romania.
Hmm?
It used to be part of Romania at one point.
It was the country that was too poor to do anything. It lost 50% of its GDP in the last couple of years because it's too poor to do anything. It was too poor to stop Russia when it was like, hey, we're going to put some troops over here and we're going to go into the country next to you, so just stay out of our fucking way. And the Moldovans were like, just don't break the dishes. Just fucking do whatever. Just don't break the dishes. That's what Moldova was. Suddenly, $250 million support package. Bam! Right?
Buy some surplus equipment and tell the
Buy
Russians
some
no.
helmets. The EU chief said that Moldova, which neighbors Ukraine, will receive 100 million euros in grants, and the same amount in loans from the 27-nation bloc to help it meet its gas needs this winter, starting January 1st.
Oh, it's the gas situation.
Because they're cold.
They're
An
cold.
additional 50 million euros will help the country's most vulnerable citizens, she says. European solidarity with the Republic of Moldova is unshakable, von der Leyen said at a news conference in the capital, Chisinau, after meeting with pro-Western President Maya Sandu. That's the lady on the right. We assure you that we will do our best to help you through this crisis. Now remember, this is Moldova. However, they have taken in a multitude of Ukrainian refugees that have fled the country during the war. So this is helping Moldova, because they got this influx of Ukrainians, and the Moldovan government was like, we have industry and we have an IT department in this country that will love to have you here. You can work here. Come be one of us, right? Because that'll help rebuild their infrastructure, having all these Ukrainians come in, skilled people. They welcomed Ukraine with all open arms. So everyone's winning here so far. Moldova, which has a population of about 2.6 million, is entirely dependent on Russia for natural gas. But Russia has used that dependence to pressure the country over its alignment with the West in recent weeks and halved its gas supplies, triggering an unprecedented energy crisis as war begins to grip. Sandu has said that Moscow's decision to reduce supplies amounts to political blackmail in the country where household energy tariffs have increased six-fold in the past year amid skyrocketing inflation. We call that the Joe Biden economy, by the way, in this country at least. We are facing the worst energy crisis in 3 decades, Sandu said Thursday, a crisis in which energy resources are being used as weapons against democracy. You see, honey, the problem is that exact situation is happening in the United States, where resources are being used as weapons against political opponents and the voter base. So, we feel your pain. Only together in solidarity will we be able to survive the coming winter and preserve our freedom and a peaceful and democratic future, Sandu added. In June, Moldova was granted EU candidate status, but the country likely won't attain full membership for years since it is conditional on a series of reforms in areas such as tackling corruption, organized crime, and strengthening human rights and the rule of law. Sidebar. Let me tell you why that's bullshit. The actual reason that they're not full members is because they don't have anything to offer the EU as tithe. It's the same reason why Ukraine is not part of NATO, or at least on paper, because NATO is like, well, your GDP isn't high enough. Oh, I'm sorry. Providing 30% of the grain for the whole fucking world and having the biggest nuclear power stations that power half of Europe wasn't good enough? Fuck you. That's what that was. But Moldova, on the other hand, they don't have that. They don't have the breadbasket of the world. They don't have nuclear power stations that power half of Europe. They're po. That's why they're not going to be full members. That's why they will hold that piece of meat over Moldovans that are starving to join the EU and go, "Ooh, you almost had it there." Just like that fucking insurance commercial that used to be on TV. They're going to dick around with these people. Because that's what they do. Anyway. We want to bring Moldova into the safe and prosperous space of the European Union, Sandu said, where human life and freedom are supreme values, and states
No, it's
are
not.
no, and states are not attacked for the development path they choose. Sorry. Von der Leyen also said Thursday that a donors meeting will be held in Paris later this month to help Moldova purchase energy resources. Moldova is part of our European family, and family must stick together when times are getting tough and difficult, she said. On Friday, the European Parliament President Roberta Metsola will also pay an official visit to Moldova. These are people who are rushing over to Moldova just to make sure there isn't anything they can exploit from them to join their boys' club, which, strangely enough, are all led by women right now. The country and the EU. Right. The girls' club? Fuck it, whatever. Moving on. Because I have 21 minutes to finish the last stories.
Yeah, right.
This one will warm the cockles of your heart, or drawing cocks over Syria. Your choice. And this is part of the story I
Probably
think you wanted
latter.
to share.
Keep
Oh, I
going.
want to address the chat. HVS says, meanwhile in the USA, heating fuel companies can't deliver heating fuel because of the diesel shortage. Funny, you should mention that.
That's funny. That's why you have to sell your car, right?
No, I had to sell my car because my dog needs a lot of work, and it's going to cost me a couple $1,000s to make sure she survives. That's why.
I don't know. You might have to sell another car just because
No,
the factor of the diesel you got to put
no,
in
because
that
the
truck.
car's worth like 15 grand, and her vet bill's only going to be like 3, which means I
All
could pay
right,
off all my other debts with the leftover money. But then I
all
wouldn't
right.
have my car anymore, and that's going to kill me emotionally. And then I'll have to go buy another T-Bird from Montana. That's from 1958. Oh darn. Yeah, I've already planned that far ahead. Anyway. Oh, Quasimodo says Moldova offers wonderfully crafted aged cheeses. I didn't know that. Thank you. I'm going to look into that now.
Moldovan cheeses.
Hell yeah. I'm a foodie, so yeah, I'm going to look into that. Anyway, moving on cuz you've already seen the map by now. Russia announced retreat from Kherson, a regional capital.
Kherson.
Yeah, a regional capital in southern Ukraine that it seized early in the war, and a potential stalemate in fighting over the winter could provide both countries with an opportunity to negotiate peace. This came from Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs on Wednesday. Yeah, I'm sorry. What have you done for me lately, Mark Milley? Right.
Hold on, I have to make the joke.
Go
I
ahead.
lost my car keys in Kharkiv,
No,
but
no.
I found them in Kherson.
Oh, Jesus.
You
I
get it?
was wondering when you were going to get to that. Anyway, he said as many as 40,000 Ukrainian civilians and well over 100,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in the war now in its 9th month. Let me just point out the casualty statistics on my scroller, I believe, are actual KIA statistics. So if he says over 100,000, take the number in my scroller, subtract that from 100,000, and that's wounded. That's my theory. I think that number's a little high, but you know what? We'll go with it anyway. Let's see. Where am I at? Oh, same thing probably on the Ukrainian side, Millie added. There has been a tremendous amount of suffering, human suffering, he said at the Economic Club of New York. Ukrainian President Zelensky said Tuesday he was open to peace talks with Russia to end the war, but only on the condition that Russia return all of Ukraine's occupied lands and provide compensation for war damage and face prosecution for war crimes. Russia has said that it is open to talks and this week announced that it had begun a retreat from Kherson. Zelensky has warned that the Russians are feigning a pullout from Kherson to lure the Ukrainian army into an entrenched battle in the strategic industrial port city, a gateway to the Russian-occupied Crimean Peninsula. Milley, the highest-ranking U.S. military officer, said Russia has amassed 20 to 30,000 troops in Kherson, and a full retreat would take several weeks. The initial indicators are that they are in fact doing that. They made the public announcement that they're doing it. I believe they're doing it in order to preserve their force to reestablish defensive lines south of the Dnieper River. But that remains to be seen, he says. Milley said that it's possible that the Russians will use the retreat to reset their troops for a spring offensive. But there's also an opportunity here, a window of opportunity for negotiation. But for negotiations to have a chance, both Russia and Ukraine would have to reach a mutual recognition that a military victory is maybe not achievable through military means, and therefore you would need to turn to other means, citing the end of World War I as an example, an armistice, so to speak.
Armistice, yes.
I don't know if I agree with Mark Milley right now, because Russia's the invader here. If you want peace, get the fuck out. That has been the demand the entire time. If you want to stop the war, get the fuck out of my country. That's what Zelensky has been saying The whole time. Get out of my country. Fuck off. Now, I don't think that's good enough anymore. And I think you, me, Mike, we've talked about this. Solution's simple. Get out of the country, which means no more Crimea. Do not rebuild that bridge that goes from Russia to Crimea, or whatever the fuck that thing was called. Do not rebuild that. That stays down. Fuck off.
They're already rebuilding it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, peace deal, get out of my country, and that bridge doesn't get finished. I don't want you anywhere near my country. Fuck off. Go around the long way. Right? There's not going to be a trade deal between Ukraine and Russia after this. Fuck that. So it's like, no bridge. And because you have involved the entire world in trying to bolster up the defense of Ukraine, the world is entitled to something in compensation. Poland will tell Russia that the fuck is that one little piece that I keep forgetting the name of? Kaliningrad is no longer Russia.
Never was.
They claim
The
it
Russians
is.
just decided they never were going to leave.
Right, but Kaliningrad is not attached to Russia. It's attached to Poland.
It's in the middle of fucking Poland, yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Which is why I said it's never been part of Russia.
but they claim it is. It's like, that's ours. And it's like, I think part of war reparations is you don't get that anymore. Fuck out of Poland. Because Poland is entitled to compensation. Poland has received the lion's share of Ukrainian refugees by the millions, right? That has stressed their economy. That has stressed their industry. That has stressed their border. That has stressed their people. So they
So
need compensation.
Does that mean he has to change his name from Warsaw Patriot to Ukrainian Patriot?
No.
No.
No,
All
he
right.
can just. We could put him in a suit that's blue and gold, and we'll just call him Captain Kiev.
Captain Key. There we go.
But he won't get a vibranium shield. He'll just have a Chinese chest rig.
Or two.
Anyway, you knew I was gonna go there.
He'll hear this. He'll be so pissed off.
Fuck you, dude. That's what's gonna be. That's what's gonna happen. Hawaii Volcano
Captain
Squad says Germany still wants Danzig back. No. You know what? You know what Germany's gonna get back? Hi, I'm Dieter, and this is Sprockets. That's what they can have back. They can have 99 Luftballons back. Anyway. Anyway.
Oh, come on. That's mean. That's
No.
mean, dude.
No. The biggest loss that Germany's had recently was the death of Sabine Schmitz, because she was special and one of a kind. And her death was shitty. Even I miss that chick. Anyway, moving on. I call this story Yoink! And it's another airplane. I couldn't find a better picture, though, sorry. Russia has sent cash and stolen weapons, Western weapons, to Iran back in August. The first glimpse of what Tehran has been getting in exchange for helping the Russian war effort in Ukraine. As always, there's no free lunch in international politics, and not least among the likes of Moscow and Tehran. Behnam Ben Taleblu, senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, is quoted as saying, "Not only does Iran get the use of Ukraine as another testing ground for its unmanned aerial threats," remember what I said? Fucking beta test for world military powers. But it gets to empower Putin's war machine, which both distracts world attention from the Middle East as well as imposes a death by 1,000 cuts strategy against the West. Ben Taleblu's comments come after a Sky News report Tuesday revealed Russia flew over $140 million of stolen Western anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles to Iran. The weapons include British NLAW anti-tank missiles a U.S. Javelin anti-tank missile, and a Stinger anti-aircraft missile that were part of a shipment to Ukraine, but, quote, fell into Russian hands, the outlet said, citing local security sources. The source said that the shipment of Western weapons could allow Iran to reverse engineer them and be used in future wars, something Ben Taleblu warned would improve Iran's already evolving domestic arms production capabilities. Sky News shared satellite photos they claim show two Russian military cargo planes at Mehrabad Airport in Tehran back in August, with the source saying cash and munitions were Russia's payment for the suicide drones Iran has provided to Russia for use in Ukraine over the last few months. Sidebar, let me get this straight. They found two Russian cargo planes unloading cash and munitions as payment to the Iranians. Why does that sound familiar? Oh, that's right. Obama's last week in office. We sent a cargo plane with $150 billion fucking dollars of mixed currency to Iran. I knew that sounded familiar.
Mm.
The source has added that Russia has added more drones worth over $200 million in the past few days. For the first time, we have a glimmer of insight into what Russia may be providing Iran in exchange for loitering munitions and unmanned combat aerial vehicles, Taleblu says. What's more, the latest report validates past Israeli concerns pertaining to problems that might arise from potential air defense system transfers to Ukraine, like the Iron Dome. Like you were saying, what if they capture it, right?
Mm-hmm.
In October, Likud leader Benjamin Netanyahu, who is expected to regain his post as prime minister following the 2022 Israeli legislative election, expressed concern about Israel agreeing to send anti-aircraft weapons to Ukraine, arguing such shipments risk ending up in Iran. On the question of weapons, there's always a possibility, and this has happened time and time again, that weapons that we supplied in one battlefield end up in Iranians' hands used against us, Netanyahu said
Another
during an October
battlefield.
interview. In the Golan Heights, where we're trying to prevent Iran from creating a second Lebanon front, a second terrorist front against us, we encounter our own Israeli-made weapons. Look, I have a
Surprise,
solution.
surprise.
I have a solution. We live in a world of GPS, right?
Yep.
Okay. We also live in a world of Big Brother and tracking and all this other shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just take these shipments of weapons that we send to Ukraine and place a GPS tracker on them hooked up to an explosive? And if these shipments leave the borders of Ukraine, they go off.
Because technically we can't
Booby
verify
trap
that
them.
those
I think we absolutely
explosives
can.
won't go off in shipping.
I think we absolutely can. See, the thing is you set the program, but you don't activate it until it lands. Problem solved.
Like,
Solved.
I don't think so. I don't
Solved.
think so. Don't think so.
Solved.
You can
Look,
solve what
it's like the border crisis. How do you solve it?
you don't.
Quickly.
Start shooting them.
No, well, okay. Quickly and expeditiously. Minefield. Done. How do you keep your arms from entering Iran? GPS detonator. If it leaves the country of Ukraine, boom. Done. Booby trap every munition. And as soon as you know that it's in Ukrainian hands, deactivate it. Done. Then you don't have to worry about it going off. Make it inert. Done. Don't tell me it can't be done. We made the atomic bomb. We sent a man to the fucking moon. At a studio. Possibly. Allegedly. It can be done. This is 2022, goddammit. We defeated COVID. Moving on. I call this story Lights Out Part 2. This is a three-part story, so I'll separate it with what I call subsections, but they're all short sections. Each time Ukrainian pensioner Halina Halitska prepares for her hospital treatment, she's preoccupied with a single thought: will there be enough power and water to see her through? Outages caused by Russian airstrikes on Ukrainian infrastructure can last for hours at a time that Halitska and 27 other patients lie tied to their dialysis machines in a
Oh,
hospital in Obukiv, a city south of Kiev. The power cuts hit pumping stations, a particular worry for the patients whose treatment use hundreds of liters of running water. Medics do their best, but sometimes the pipes run dry and they have to curtail the life-saving treatments. It's a war and there's nothing we can do about it, 65-year-old Halitska said from her hospital bed. Russia stepped up attacks on power plants, substations, and other targets in mid-October amid numerous battlefield setbacks following its February 24th invasion. Ukrainian President Zelensky said that about 40% of the country's energy infrastructure has been seriously damaged. On Thursday, Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Inat said on television that Russia was likely stockpiling missiles and drones for future infrastructure strikes. So it's targeted. It's not military versus military. It's military versus population, clearly. So there's a subsection here. It's called We Couldn't Leave. Stable power is crucial for the patients in Obukiv Central District Hospital, Chief Dr. Tetiana Tremba had said. But the outages keep coming, caused by direct strikes on infrastructure and rolling blackouts imposed by energy providers to ease pressure on the grid and carry out repairs. Shortening treatments can leave patients suffering from nausea, vomiting, and other symptoms, but skipping treatment altogether is not an option. They just can't live without it, he says. Sometimes, the impact of war comes even closer. Amid the dull hum of the dialysis machines, Halitska recalled the last time a month ago when Russian strikes hit nearby during her own treatment. We couldn't do anything since we were tied up to the equipment. We couldn't leave. Tremba was there too. It's such a responsibility, she says. So many people were lying here, and we didn't know how it would end. We were simply tethered to life and death. It's kind of true, right? Because you're stuck in a hospital and you were stuck to a machine and the power goes out. Now you're stuck to an anchor. So the other subsection was called Blackouts and Generators. Vitaly Vlasyuk, deputy governor of the Kyiv region in charge of healthcare, said that around 60 hospitals in his area had been damaged in attacks, and twice as many affected in some way by Russia's invasion. Deputy Health Minister Bohdan Bodovkovsky told Reuters officials had not recorded any deaths, thankfully, as a result of the power cuts. All departments in which planned surgeries took place were provided with a minimum level of electricity needed to continue and complete all the medical procedures thus far. But Ukraine's hospitals did not have enough generators to cover all of the outages, he adds. Government officials working with international partners had delivered more than 400 generators to hospitals nationwide. Another 1,100 were expected from a joint project with the World Bank and 170 more from the WHO. So let me get this straight. The World Bank is mainly food aid. They can cough up 1,100 generators, but the World Health fucking organization can only cough up 170? That don't make no sense. We're not in the business of making power, just wielding it and holding it over your head. That's what the WHO is.
And dictating.
Yes. The European Commission on Wednesday proposed an 18 billion euro financial support package for Ukraine that would include funding for Kyiv to restore critical infrastructure. Meanwhile, Halitska and the other 27 patients suffering from kidney diseases in the Obukiv hospital have to just lie back and wait for the next gap in power cuts. Without dialysis, we have no life, she says. So it's that was like the one human interest story. I thought I would indulge in one because it had 3 good sections, all related to infrastructure cuts and power, etc. I just wanted to share that with you. I only have 2 stories left. We're going to get through these quickly. Next one. More gear. The Pentagon announced another $400 million weapons package for Ukraine on Thursday as Russia ramps up attacks on critical infrastructure with winter getting closer. The new aid includes 4 Avenger air defense systems, missiles for Hawk air defense systems, ammunition for HIMARS rocket systems, artillery rounds, and hundreds of grenade launchers. Woo. It comes 1 week after the Pentagon announced a separate $400 million package, bringing the total aid that the Biden administration has sent to Ukraine to just over $19 billion. Sidebar. I know that sounds like a lot, but you gotta remember, we live in an area where Democrats say the word trillion like you and I say, fuck!
Is this the last story?
No, it's the second to last.
What's the next one?
You'll see. It's quick though. When I was in
Right.
Kyiv last week, I had the chance to consult directly with President Zelensky and his team on the ground about what Ukraine needs to be in the strongest position possible on the battlefield. This came from White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan at his press conference last Thursday. Or yesterday, rather. Sorry.
I have a story that ties into this one, so as soon as you're done.
Okay, I'll defer it to you after this before the last story then. This increased air defense will be critical for Ukraine as Russia continues to use cruise missiles and Iranian drones to attack critical civilian infrastructure. Zelensky thanked the U.S. for the latest weapons package on Thursday. Together, we are building an air shield to protect Ukrainian civilians, Zelensky tweeted. We are bringing victory over the aggressor closer. The announcement also comes as some states continue tabulating votes from Tuesday's midterm elections, with Republicans likely closing in on a House majority. Republican Kevin McCarthy, out of California, who announced this week that he'll run for Speaker of the House, told Punchbowl News last month that Republicans wouldn't write a blank check for Ukraine if the GOP controls the lower chamber. I just want to make one little sidebar here. The midterm elections were 4 days ago? 4 days ago, right? 3 Senate seats, control of the Senate, hangs in the balance. 4 days after the elections had concluded. The last time we had an election debacle was in the state of Florida, and they couldn't get their fucking votes counted, and hanging chads and all this bullshit, and they took a lot of heat for it. By people, by the government, by the media, etc. They have fixed this. They saw the problem, and they corrected it. They had all their shit tabulated that night. And yet, Georgia can't do it. Nevada can't do it. What's the other one? Arizona can't do it,
and
right?
In particular,
Go figure. G-Web State.
Yeah, yes, G-Web State, and unfortunately, I am from originally.
No, you are a
Maricopa
South
County.
Carolinian now. You've been there
I'm a South
longer.
Carolinian now, but my birth certificate says Maricopa County on.
But here's the problem. Those are the 3 states that fucked with the presidential election 2 years
Last
ago.
time.
They still don't get their shit straight. Okay?
Exactly.
Here's the problem.
Here's another problem, okay? There were like estimated 2.5 million registered voters in Maricopa County.
Yes.
But of the tallied votes, only about 1 million people have voted. Okay, and I'll be honest with you,
because
the machines broke down 2 hours before the end of the polling.
Yes.
1 and 2, they would not extend the time to let the other 1.5 million people vote.
Okay, but here's the problem. 2.5 million registered voters, fine. But midterms don't guarantee 100% voter turnout. Midterms usually statistically have lower turnouts than presidential elections. However, this midterm election broke every attendance record in history. Because I think the voting public finally realized how fucked we are and finally got off their ass and got off their couch and showed up.
No, because if they did that, the Republicans would have done a fuck ton better.
No, I don't agree. See, my problem is the red wave that we were spoon-fed for months Think about who spoon-fed that to us. It wasn't the politicians that were running. It wasn't the RNC. It
It
was
was the
the
media.
media. The media overhyped it, and people were like, nah, it can't be right. And then when it didn't happen, they were like, what happened to the red wave? And it's like everybody who ran was like, we didn't say there was going to be one. Kevin McCarthy's interview the other day was spot on. He was like, we never said there was going to be a red wave. We said we wanted to take majority back in the House. We did that. He's right. Ronna McDaniel, same thing. She was like, we never said red wave. We said we would like to see it because the media keeps hyping it up. But they were like, we managed our expectations from day one. We thought the American people would see it through, but there is too many people who do mixed voting because they don't want to make the same mistake on the other side as they did with the Democrats in 2020. They gave all the control to one side, and look where we're at. They're cautiously skeptical now. She was like, but they gave us enough majority to at least swing it back our way a little bit. But here's my problem. The 3 states that fucked 2020 are fucking with 2022. That's my first problem. The second problem is the excuse making of why they're fucking with it. That's bullshit, okay? American Idol 15 fucking years ago can tabulate 70 million telephone ballots in 2 minutes and 2 seconds during a fucking commercial break. Do not tell me one fucking state can't get a fucking election done in 4 fucking days. Bullshit.
Well, they can't because they're all fucking incompetent.
No. See, that's the thing. They're feigning ignorance. They deliberately set this up because while there's a mass frenzy of blatant stupidity on full display, that's when they meddle with the results. You see, this election in 2020 was never about the votes. Ever. Maybe you could even argue parts of 2016's election. It was never, ever about the votes. It was about the ballots. Not the votes, just the ballots. Because think about what they're doing with the ballots. Signature curing. Hanging chads. Oh, we'll have to interpret this one because the lines are blurred. It wasn't about the person's choice. It was about their interpretations of a ballot. What does that sound like? The ATF, the interpretations of fucking law. HVS has it right. Hire the producers of American Idol to run elections. No shit, right? Because they can do it in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. The average commercial break. Chuck Woolery taught us that. We'll see you in 2 and 2. Right? Remember that shit? They figured it out. Are you telling me Simon Cowell, a British guy, can solve our elections faster than the entire fucking country here? Maybe. And that brings me to another argument, which this is going to come as squashing the toes of state rights versus federal. There needs to be a universal federal ballot. Period. End of story. If you make the ballot universal, like a franchise at a McDonald's, then there's no diversity in interpretations of the ballot, which means if you make the ballot universal, you make counting the ballots universal, then you take the human factor and the corruption factor out of it because it's the same in every state. They set this up so every state gets their own right to choose how they choose leaders. You know what? You can do that on a local level. You don't get to do that on a federal level. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. You want to do it for your mayors and your city council people? Go right the fuck ahead. But when it comes to determining the leaders of the fucking country, universal ballot. That needs to happen. That needs to happen now.
Can't happen
Why?
because it's against federal law.
Which one?
The one that states that the states are actually in charge of the elections.
That's what
No.
I'm saying.
Kind of the Constitution.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. They did that as a concession during the ratification of the Constitution because there was a thing about federal overbearance versus states' rights. I get that. That is outdated now. That was
Is
created
it?
during, yes.
So you're gonna make the argument the Second Amendment would be outdated too?
No, I'm talking about the way we select the leadership of the country. It's if they the problem is they allowed it to be that way for so long that now individual states can corrupt the results, right? How do you solve the problem of all these states muddying up the procedure? Easy. You make a universal procedure for all the states. You're not saying that they don't have the right to hold elections. We're just saying, look, if you want to choose your mayors and your city councils and your governors, you can do it any way you like. But when it comes to determining the leader of the nation, they should make that one type of ballot. That's all I'm saying. It's not
You can't
overbearing.
because there's other shits that go on the ballot.
That's why I'm saying only those parts of the ballot. When you pick the president, the senators, and the House of Representatives, that should be simple. That should just be bang, 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 done. Every other down ballot thing, you can do it any way you want. I'm not disagreeing with that. I agree with that.
No, because now you have people that have to get two separate fucking ballots.
Fine.
Do you see the fucked up part there?
No, I
I'll
don't.
give you an example. New Hampshire, my ballot had state, federal officers,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was voter initiated questions on my ballot.
Uh-huh.
So you're saying for state, for federal, office,
Uh-huh.
now we got to have a separate ballot for state and local and voter initiated shit. That makes no sense. That's going to fuck the process up even worse.
Okay, fine. Then just do them on 2 separate days.
Bjorn would like me to remind you that you're past 90
I
minutes.
am past 90 minutes. No, see, the problem is this was a self-created problem. We let there be 50
It's called
different...
people that are in charge of the process are fucking idiots.
It doesn't matter. There's no
And
universal
need to be
standard.
fired.
It still doesn't matter. There's no universal standard, which means when you have 50 different contests with 50 different rules, there's 50 different scrutineers, there's 50 different excuses. You can make a national ballot. I mean, think about it like this. What if it was all electronic? Then it wouldn't be an excuse. It would all just be click this, right? Well, it would look one way for the first couple of questions, and it would look whatever way you want for the rest of them. But it would still be the same screen. It would be still the same, I'm sitting down doing this. At the very end, you hit the print button, and it just prints out your ballot. So you
We
have a
already
physical
mentioned that on the
copy.
chat.
That's the whole point. It's like if you take away the confusion and you make it easy, right? What's wrong with making it easy? That's all I'm saying. And if you make it easy, it's like, here's your president. These are the 2 candidates. Pick one. These are your senators. Pick one. This is your House of Representatives. Pick one. Done. And then the rest could be Joe Bob wants to run for mayor. He's heading in a train going east at 42 miles an hour. Jim Bob wants to go west heading 15 miles an hour. When are the 2 going to collide? I don't care how the fuck you choose your mayor. If you want to do it that obtuse, you go right the fuck ahead. But when it comes to president, senate, and house, it's these guys, these guys, these guys. Pick one, good, done, finished. That's it. How is that fucking difficult? It's not. You can try to spin that any way you want, but it's not. You know I'm right fundamentally. And I know what you're saying. States' rights versus federal overbearance. I get that. But this wouldn't be a problem if they did it, if they made it incorruptible in the first place. And they didn't. Because they didn't want it to be incorruptible. They wanted it to be fuck-withable. Which is why we're in this boat. Anyway. Last story. Because, like you said, we're over 90 minutes. And I didn't even want to do this one, but I saw it right before we went on air, and I thought I would share this with you.
Keep going.
Okay. Friday, November 11th, today, Veterans Day, 261. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky championed another victory in Ukraine today after Russia announced all of its forces had withdrawn from the city of Kherson following months of brutal fighting in the region. Our people, ours, Kherson. Zelensky wrote this on Telegram. Today is a historical day. We're taking back Kherson. The retreat from the southern city is another major setback for Moscow, as its, quote, special military operation continues for nearly 9 months, and Ukrainian troops continue to make gradual gains in ousting Russian forces. Zelensky said special units of Ukraine's armed forces had made it inside Kherson as more troops were approaching to support the city. Videos emerged on social media showing Ukrainians in the city center chanting and celebrating, some with their pets, while others held kids on their shoulders. The full retreat came after Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu gave the order to withdraw Wednesday as Ukrainian forces continued to advance in another counteroffensive operation. Russia's defense ministry said that all remaining troops had been ordered out of the city of Kherson to the east side of the Dnieper River, and that not a single piece of military equipment or weapons had been left behind. That means they left a shit ton behind, isn't it? There's farmers probably doing donuts in T-72s right now. We saw it before.
Oh, they are. They totally are. We saw it on
Totally.
YouTube.
Totally. Russia's decision to remove its limited supplies is a change in operational strategy following its failure to hold its military lines or equipment in Kharkiv earlier this year. They literally just said right there, Mike, that they lost their Kharkivs. Recapturing
did.
Kherson is one of the biggest successes Kyiv has seen since it retook control over Kharkiv in September, but some defense officials are concerned that it could just be another Russian ploy. If Ukrainian forces do establish full control of the city of Kherson, it would be an important tactical success. What cannot be ruled out is that Russians have set up a trap and plan to carry out a false flag operation. This came from somebody who I haven't mentioned all night. Where is it? Former DIA intelligence officer for Russian Doctrine and Strategy and author of Putin's Playbook, Rebecca Koffler. First time I mentioned her all night. Things are very fluid now, she says, noting that the coming hours will be crucial in identifying the merits of the withdrawal. Ukrainian intelligence is very capable, having benefited from US and NATO's support. They almost certainly have planned for various contingencies. Ukraine's defense intelligence confirmed that its forces had entered the city and urged Russian soldiers who remain in the area to surrender. Your commanders ordered you to dress in civilian clothes and try to flee Kherson independently. Obviously, you can't do this, the ministry said in a Facebook statement. Russian soldiers have been urged to surrender under the program established by Kyiv dubbed I Want to Live, which pledges certain yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Which pledges certain contingencies compliant with the Geneva Convention for invading forces who willingly surrender. Every Russian soldier who will resist will be destroyed, the ministry warned. You only have one chance to avoid death. Surrender immediately. What's that guy's name? Was his name... Was it Major John Andre or something like that?
Major Andre.
Yeah.
Major Payne?
No, Major Andre. Scott knows who I'm talking about. This was during the
You're talking
Revolutionary
about
War.
who got caught with plans.
He got caught not only with plans, but he got caught trying to escape while dressed as a civilian.
And was executed.
He was executed as a spy because he was dressed as a continental civilian. This is why the Ukrainians are saying you cannot dress in civilian clothes and try to flee the country, because
Better example
you're doing that.
Better example is the U.S. in World War II during the Battle of the Bulge. Any German caught in a U.S. uniform was shot summarily on the spot.
Yes, because a lot of them were. It was even in
Saboteurs.
the movie. Yeah, they were saboteurs. They would move the signs around, or they would kind of goad you into a conversation, then mow you down with machine guns. Yeah, you're right. So this is why the Ukrainians are saying you can't do that, because if you do that, you're a spy and we'll kill you. Because that's
Well, they're not afforded the protections of the Geneva Convention. Then.
Correct. Because spies are considered despicable, I guess. I don't know. Major Andre's death was actually pretty sad. Like, it was depicted pretty well in that it was a Turn Washington Spies. It was depicted pretty well because uh, they cataloged what his last moments were, like what he said and how pale he got and how weak he got in the knees when he realized that they weren't going to honor his request not to hang him like a commoner, and they were like, "Nope, we're going to hang you like a commoner." I was like, Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
that sucks. All right, so that was my last story, Mike. I'm done. So if you have anything you'd like to add, the floor is yours.
Yeah, we just have an addendum to the $400 million package that that the United States military, the United States provided to its military aid for Ukraine.
Today's or the one earlier?
Uh, the one the other day. This is part of it.
Okay.
Apparently, United States is to buy South Korea artillery shells for Ukraine. We didn't cover that
Okay.
because this is an article from today, November 11th.
Mm-hmm.
South Korea insists policy against providing lethal aid to Ukraine remains unchanged, and ammunition is for U.S. use. Yes, U.S. use to give to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Washington plans to buy 100,000 South Korean-made artillery shells for use in the Ukraine war. The United States official has said, though South Korea has insisted its policy is against providing lethal aid to Ukraine, remain unchanged, and it expects the end user of the ammunition to be U.S. forces. Citing U.S. officials familiar with the deal, the Wall Street Journal reported that the U.S. and South Korea were nearing an agreement to buy 100,000 rounds of 155 millimeter artillery shells that would be delivered to Ukraine as part of the $400 million aid package. Right? The U.S. official speaking on condition of anonymity confirmed with Reuters News that the news agency on Friday that the Washington wanted to send the South Korean artillery shells to Ukraine. The official said that Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, the USAI, funds could be used to buy the ammunition, but that it was unclear whether the shells would be shipped through U.S. territory. The official warned that the news of talks being made public could threaten the deal. Responding to reports on the ammunition deal, South Korea's defense ministry said on Friday that its position on not providing lethal aid to Ukraine remained unchanged, and its confidential negotiations on the sale of the artillery shells were being conducted under the premise that the U.S. is the end user. In order to make up for the shortage of 155 millimeter ammunition inventories in the United States, negotiations are ongoing between the U.S. and Korean companies to export ammunition, the ministry said in a statement. South Korea's Yonhap news agency reported on Friday that the country's defense minister Lee Jong-sup and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin had agreed in principle to proceed with the artillery deal during talks earlier this month. But the allies are having related talks under the premise that the materials will be used by the U.S., Yonhap reported, citing a statement from the country's defense ministry. The ministry added that the South Korean government had not altered its commitment to refrain from supplying Ukraine with lethal weapons, Yonhap said. And then again, obviously, there's always the threat from Moscow. Putin warned Seoul, a U.S. ally, South Korea, has sought to avoid antagonizing Russia for economic reasons and because the influence that Moscow can exert with North Korea. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol denied last month that Seoul had provided any lethal weapons to Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin said that such a decision would destroy their bilateral relations, like they have any. Putin made the remark at a conference in Moscow, accusing the West of inciting the war in Ukraine and warning South Korea against supplying weapons to Ukraine. Putin equated such a move by Seoul to Moscow sending arms to North Korea. Yeah, like you have anything to send. You've used it all in Ukraine.
Wait a minute. So, in the beginning of this conflict, we were told that anything we do would be considered escalatory. So we backed down in almost every quantifiable way. We could have we could have flown in 10 A-10 Warthogs and liquidated the 40-mile convoy and ended this war on day one. But we didn't do that because that's escalatory. And then we didn't negotiate the deal and broker the deal at
I would have gone one step further, and all those forces that were massing at the border, I would
sure.
have just bombed the shit out of,
You couldn't do that
firebombed the
because then
shit out.
you couldn't do that because you would cross into
I, I
Belarus.
I don't care. I would have firebombed the shit out of all those forces just sitting there at the
But
border.
that would make us the aggressor, not the defender.
As if putting troops in Belarus and Moldova
But
aren't
yes,
aggressive
it's optics.
either.
It's optics. We would be the bad
Whose
guys.
Screw your optics.
whose troops would be invited into Ukraine and who's actually invaded Ukraine?
Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. But he's saying that you would take the guys massed on the border of Belarus, not Ukraine. See, we would invite the Ukrainians would have invited the defenders to burt,
Yeah.
in Ukraine, not in Belarus, in Ukraine, and that would have been cool. But see,
Belarus technically has violated, Ukraine's sovereignty
yes,
because they allowed the Russians to
They
fucking
hosted.
use their country as a launching off point.
they
by that
hosted.
right,
But then one would argue.
So they are
so did
involved.
Moldova by not doing anything.
Exactly.
Even if
One
they-
would
even
argue
if
that
they're
Moldova
poor-
did the same thing
Even if they're poor
Yes,
as
they
shit,
did.
they didn't even put up a fucking fight.
because they don't have a military.
Exactly. That's the point.
That's why
They
they
don't
were
have
like,
any.
just do whatever you got to do. Just don't break our China plates, not the country. Don't break our plates.
Anyways, let me move on.
Well,
okay.
no, I want to get this straight. What you're saying is the Russians can buy weapons and bullets and beans and bandages from North Korea, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the Ukrainians can't, or we can't buy 155 shells from South Korea because that's escalatory.
And send them to Ukraine.
Okay, so this is okay. Remember, like way back before we talked about backfill. So like, Poland would send MiG-29s to Ukraine, so that's Poland sending planes, and we would simply sell F-16s to Poland to
Exactly.
backfill their inventory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then remember when Poland said they were moving their troops to their border in defense, and the Czech Republic said they were going to send troops to Poland to backfill that, and then the Germans said they were going to backfill the Czechs? That's all okay, right? So we would send American 155 howitzer shells to Ukraine, and South Korea would simply just sell them to us, our inventory, backfill us. So Russia could technically not say that that's escalatory, because South Korea didn't send shells to Ukraine. We sent shells to Ukraine. South Korea sent shells to U.S. Yes, we know that there are active duty troops in Ukraine, HVS. They're called advisors. I'm air quoting super hard here. Like, I know what's going on. You know what's going on. We all know what's going on. This is a proxy war and a beta test for military hardware. Make no mistake. We all know this.
And it's hard to pronounce Korean names. So yes, that's the president's name, and it does sound like that in English, unfortunately.
Yoon Suk Yeol. It's easy to pronounce. Of course, it helps if you're half Korean.
It helps if you're half.
What else do you got for us?
Well, that wasn't the end of the article, but you jumped in there in the middle of the article. Okay,
Sorry. Go on.
It goes on to say that we've provided humanitarian and peaceful assistance to Ukraine in solidarity with the international community, but never
Fruit salad.
lethal weapons or any such things, Yoon told reporters.
Sure.
But he added, in any case, it's a matter of our sovereignty. And I'd like you to know that we're trying to maintain a peaceful and good relations with all countries around the world, including Russia. Seoul has provided bulletproof vests, helmets, and other non-lethal military aid.
That's why you wanted to finish the story.
Yes. Here's some bulletproof vests. Here's
And
some
helmets.
and here's some other non-lethal military aid.
Damn it.
As well as medical supplies to Ukraine.
Mm.
But has turned down Kyiv's request for weapons, local media reported. Ukrainian President Zelensky, has called on South Korea to provide weapons which he said would be indispensable. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said on Thursday that Washington would provide the additional $400 million in arms and ammunition and other equipment from the Defense Department. Okay, that's why I said this ties in. Okay,
Yeah.
This drawdown will bring the total U.S. military assistance for Ukraine to an unprecedented level of $19.3 billion since the beginning of the administration, Blinken said in a statement. The air defense, long range, and precision fire capabilities that we are providing are carefully calibrated to best serve Ukraine on the battlefield as it makes gains from Kherson to Kharkiv, Blinken said. We will continue to support Ukraine so it can defend itself and be in the strongest possible position at the negotiating table when the time comes. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
If somebody in the South Korean Hangul military industrial complex somehow catches this podcast, please, I implore you, send Daewoo rifles to Ukraine. Please, send millions of them so that I can buy a surplus one 5 years from now and not have to pay $1,800 for the ones that Kimber imported
Like-
years ago.
I
Well,
just
they
want
just
to
import
go on
them again.
statement saying that I suck at speaking Korean. I'm better at Chinese or Japanese than Korean.
Well, the guy's name is, the last name is Yun. It's Seok Yul Yun. So it's last name, first middle. That's how Korean vernacular works.
I
Just
know.
like
and
Japanese.
that's why I said I'm
But
not good
it's
at
spelled
Korean.
differently between different news outlets, and
Yeah,
the
like
way
they
that
don't-
you wrote it, it's gonna be mispronounced. It's Seok, so it's Seok.
Well, it's not me that wrote it. It's
I know.
Al
That's what I'm saying. It's like all the different outlets spell it differently, because somebody takes the Hangul character and tries to phonetically change it into English letters, and it never works. That's all it is.
Unfortunately not.
All right, what else you got for me?
That's all I'm gonna go for.
Good, then I'm going to play this, because it was 2 hours and 2 minutes. I'm 32 minutes over, but it was a good discussion. So, and you're all here, and you all stayed here. So I want to thank you, the audience, HVS, DJ Darkhound, my buddy Jeff, Night Strike, you were in there too, HVS, Bjorn, all of you guys, you were all there. Shady Hill, I saw all of you. You're all
We
there.
saw you, Shady Hill, and we saw you, DJ Darkhound.
Exactly. Which is the same guy that's in the multiplayer gaming channel. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. Which I know I've been slow in recording because I've been very busy. I have a sick dog and 7 other ones too. Anyway, I want to thank you all for taking the time to watch. This was the War Room, day 261. And we will be back for other episodes, as usual.
You didn't
Slava
say it.
Ukraini.
Hello, I'm Slava.
And good night.
Shall not be infringed.